Now, Brian Kuebler, what happened in there?
So the judge just came back with not guilty on all charges. It was a very lengthy explanation, about a half an hour exactly. He said not guilty on the assault charge, not guilty on reckless endangerment, and not guilty on both counts of the misconduct in office charge. His explanation, again, was lengthy. It took about a half an hour. There was really no reaction. We weren't in the courtroom. I was in the overflow room, so I can exit.
Right.
There wasn't really any reaction from Nero. If you were looking at him, he was looking pretty stoic. There was some reaction from the prosecutors. I noticed Janice Bledsoe had her head in her hand. Other than that, there really wasn't much reaction. We all got up and just came out here. There were some people muttering in the hallways that were watching the case, and I think they're probably within this circle here.
Right.
But other than that, so again, we have not guilty on all 4 charges for Officer Nero. His main explanation was that Miller was the one who handcuffed Freddie Gray, detained Freddie Gray, and arrested Freddie Gray, and that Officer Nero was just in the proximity. He never did touch Freddie Gray as for the assault charge. And as far as the reckless endangerment charge, that was failure to seatbelt Freddie Gray. The judge found that he was never trained to seatbelt people inside of the wagons. That was a very big piece of evidence in this case. And then the new order that did say that they had to seatbelt people in vans came out 2.5 days before the Freddie Gray arrest, but the judge noted that it was not distributed correctly, and therefore there was no evidence that Nero actually read that email or understood that that was what that him and other officers needed to do.
So interestingly enough, for the assault charge, the prosecution called Garrett Miller to the stand.
Yes.
And that testimony ends up knocking that charge off the table.
He basically said, and the Judge Williams basically said, or that Miller basically said that it was he and he alone who cuffed Freddie Gray and detained Freddie Gray, and that Officer Nero went to go get his bike, and he wasn't even there for the part where the state was saying he was unlawfully touched.
Wow. And then the misconduct in office charges, both of them not guilty as well.
Somewhat linked to the other charges. The judge said that you had to have a corrupt behavior, that you knew of policy and that you didn't follow it, that there was some sort of evil intent there, and that wasn't the case in either of these misconduct charges.
Right. So also on the seatbelt charge, I mean, this is really the first time we've heard solidly on the seatbelt issue, and he's saying that they didn't know about it.
Yeah, so that policy, and we had reported this last spring, that policy came out on April 9th, and it was emailed to everybody. The state put on some evidence saying that they had evidence Nero checked his email that day, and he should have known about the policy, but the emails that they say that he used his email account for BPD was like earlier in the day. This policy didn't come out until 6:01 p.m. that night, and the judge made reference to that. That policy, again, takes the discretion of seatbelting anybody out of the equation. You have to seatbelt people. But it wasn't read by Nero. It wasn't mentioned at roll call. There was no evidence that it was mentioned at roll call like they're supposed to. And he's also supposed to get a signed copy or a paper copy he's supposed to sign off on. None of that happened. Therefore, the judge ruled that he probably wasn't aware that he had to seatbelt Freddie Gray, and therefore the misconduct office and the reckless endangerment charge, not guilty.
But not to jump ahead too much, but you got to wonder what this means for the other arresting officers as well.
It does. Well, it's interesting because Miller's the one who said, I'm the one who did everything. But the judge kept saying for this case only, obviously these charges only apply to this case. But with Miller, it's a different situation now because he is the one that unlawfully touched Freddie Gray and detained him. So we'll see where this goes after that. But Miller's trial isn't until July. The next one up is Caesar Goodson, the driver.
Right, the driver. What was it like inside the courtroom? I mean, you said there wasn't much reaction from the people involved.
Yeah.
But what was it like? What did it feel like in there?
I wasn't in the courtroom. I was in the overflow room. But I mean, we got a few from the cameras of the courtroom. It was jam-packed of people in there. It reminded me of when former Mayor Sheila Dixon was on trial, because it's the same courtroom. People were just jam-packed in there. And the overflow room was pretty jammed as well. But like I said, not really any discernible reaction from Officer Nero, or really so much even from the prosecution. The judge read a very lengthy statement and ruled not guilty, and everyone up and left.
Wow.
And now we're here.
Now we're here with the protesters, which you can see. They've kind of quieted down for the time being. But what's next for you, Brian, as we move on in our coverage today?
I'm going to run down to the other live shot, and we're going to start talking to some attorneys and kind of flesh this out and let people know exactly kind of what this means and how we move forward. So
wonderful, wonderful. Well, thanks so much. I appreciate it.